mentioned we're going to start.
Don't record. Okay.
I'd like to call to order our regularly scheduled meeting. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here. It's great to see everyone. I think we all have a copy of the agenda, which was distributed earlier this week via email. So I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we would approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Okay.
All those opposed? Okay. Motion carries. That will bring us to public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. I do see we have members of the public here. If anyone would like to speak, please tell us who you are and you may start your comment. Please.
I spoke with Ms. Seacrest about having a lecture about Palestine. And I spoke with her and she said that she would bring it to your attention. So I'm not sure if it's already on the agenda or not.
It's not on the agenda, but they are aware of your proposal.
Okay, so, oh, did they already see it?
I did
Yes,
send
we
it to
did
you.
receive
Yes,
copies of
I
it
did send it.
via email.
Oh, okay. So I was just gonna pass out some copies and see if there were any questions or comments or.
We wouldn't provide feedback during this time. Usually this time is an opportunity for the public to speak to us, so we generally don't respond. And in this case, I think the trustees also have not had time to review the proposal.
Oh, okay.
So I think once folks review it, they may have some thoughts for sure.
All right, then I'll just take the minute to just go over what it is essentially is that, you know, in December, the library had an event for Israeli music. And it was, you know, kind of heartbreaking to our community because there are a lot of people in our community who are refugees from Palestine and Syria and Yemen. And many of our community members have lost a lot of family members. And we asked that there could be an event to educate the public about Palestine. And so this event that we propose is to educate about the rich history of Palestine and the culture of Palestine, and the contributions of our Palestinian neighbors and friends here in Farmington Hills. And we know that actually Farmington Hills has quite a huge population of Levantine residents, and a lot of our friends and neighbors are Levantine. And so the framework of the event would be a panel of distinguished speakers. And then after the speakers speak, there would be a Q&A. And then we would also have like a multimedia exhibit so that people could touch artifacts, look at maps, see cultural clothes, for example. And we would have some stacks of books that would include histories of Palestine, but also fiction, novels, and poetry. And then the people that we would like to be able to speak include Dr. Jiab Suleiman. He is a board certified orthopedic surgeon who has been in private practice for over 20 years. He's performed over 30,000 surgeries. And he has been for over a decade to Gaza and the West Bank to perform surgeries. And he's also been all over Africa and Iraq and many other places. And he's going to give the perspective from the healthcare perspective. How has the recent events affected the healthcare and the care of children and the hospitals in Gaza? And then we also have Huwaida Araf. She is a Palestinian American attorney. She practices human rights law. So she advocates for people who are abused by the system, including victims of the Flint water crisis, police brutality, wrongful arrests, voter disenfranchisement, and the suppression of students who advocated for Palestine. She was in 2022 a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives for the 10th Congressional District in Michigan. She's a chair of the National Lawyers Guild of Palestine Subcommittee. Her organization was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And she has a really interesting background. So we know the civil rights movement in the United States. Rosa Parks is one of the greatest icons. She refused to move to the back of the bus. In Palestine, the Palestinians are not allowed on the same buses as Israelis. So she, inspired by the American civil rights movement, she went on an Israeli bus, and for that she was arrested. And other things that she did, she was on a flotilla to bring food and medicine to Gaza, and her flotilla was attacked. So she is a really interesting person. She has a really interesting background. And then lastly, Dr. Ismail Noor. He is a Nakba survivor. He was forced into exile at the age of 17 from his village at gunpoint. He and his fellow villagers were expelled from their homes. And he has spoken at many places, including at Eastern Michigan University, the Detroit Library, and other speaking engagements. So, and we hope that you find these people to be really interesting and that you think this is a good educational opportunity that the whole community could engage with. Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate that input and look forward to looking through the proposal, and we'll be giving our feedback back to the staff. Thank you. All right, if there's no more public comment, that will bring us to the minutes. I would entertain a motion for approval of our April 2025 minutes.
I move that we approve the the minutes for the meeting of April 2020.
Second, we didn't get it.
Okay, right.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we would approve the minutes from the April 2025 meeting. I believe we got a copy of those via email. Okay. Any
Go members are.
Yeah, all the copies. Okay, seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And that will bring us to the treasurer's report. Kathy, back to you.
Okay, due to a medical emergency and hospitalization, our Plant Moran contact was not able to produce and send our financial reports for April 2020. So I have nothing to say on the monies that we spent. But we will need to approve our operating bills and filing of financial statements next. So, Michigan class updates. In April, our earned income was $44,517.04. Our year-to-date earned income was $171,805.33. And our month-end balance was $12,344,952.08. On April 1st, our daily yield was 4.4238%, and on April 30th, it was 4.3992%. That's it.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for the treasurer? Thank you so much. And then that will bring us to the Friends of the Library report. And Stacy, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ernie. Good news, we had a great book sale. We raised about $4,800. That was nice. And we turned over a lot of stock, so there's like nothing out there now. So if you have friends who need to donate stuff, then please have them bring it in. As long as it's not VHS tapes or books on cassettes, I would be super happy. eBay sales wound down in April because I went out of town and I didn't want to monitor anything when I was on vacation. So we're going to start back up again with some volunteers who are ready to input some things. We, as of end of April, we have grossed $1,125, and we realized about 64% profit from that. And that includes having to pay for postage as well. So it's been, I did a quick estimate of what we sold. We would have made $55 on what we sold on the 47 items, and instead we made $710 on it. So it really is a market difference in terms of how much you can get with a wider audience. We overlapped with Woodstock. Their first day was our bag sale, and man, we cleaned up. We sold about $750 worth of bags, I think, which was, I almost hit my desired goal of $800. But it was great. And we're probably gonna change it up next year, and make it a little bit shorter because we do notice that there are some lag times and this way, as Kelly has said, you create a little bit of a sense of urgency when you reduce the hours. And that way I am not exhausted Sunday night rolling into the work week on Monday. The auction went really well. Sold everything,
Thank you, Maria.
including some of the amazing things donated by some board members.
Excited.
Right. We were all excited, I think, and made about $810. And that was probably free and clear, I think, because we had donations of food and the friends had some money that they used to spend on some of the beverages. Also, thanks to Renee for being at the book sale on Friday because it allowed me to dip out to buy a few things that we needed for the auction. And I was like, I just leave it in great hands.
The art sale, the art auction. I don't think really well explained it very well. I think a lot of effort went in, but it was a terrible night, but there just weren't very many people there. And so, you need to look at it, if you offered again, how do we get more people engaged in coming there? There just weren't many attendees. And the auditorium was this big space, so it would be better to put like little circular tables where it was more like casual kind of thing instead of the auditorium chairs. There's just some suggestions because the event may have made a few $100s, but it just, and Maria worked her heart off and Joe, but it just, they needed a lot more people there for some excitement that really was an auction, so.
Well, any excitement you want to drum up would be absolutely appreciated because word of mouth tends to be the best way to do this kind of thing. And I do think, I mean, I have art from the first auction that I have on a mantle that I really like looking at. So it's not just like the weird things that go, although the weird things really tend to elicit a lot of comments. So yeah, anything that we can all do to drum up that.
It needs a lot more attendance, make it work.
It depends on what our goals are, I would imagine. It seems to be working fairly well on the second year of its inception. I think we're all fairly strained from the amount of work that, I mean, I know I was exhausted at the end of April.
That's a lot of work.
Combined effort of everything that we do for the friends as well as work. So it does take a village in this regard. Make it happen. So
Was it a bigger
appreciate-
turnout than last year?
Slightly smaller by about 8 people. I think.
There were bad thunderstorms.
I was outside.
Yeah,
Terrible
weather.
poured. It absolutely poured.
I don't know, I think those four people that were right in front of me were very happy with what they got.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
They walked away with a lot.
Yeah,
They bought a house
really?
and they needed artwork.
That's
And they
crazy.
didn't spend as much money as they thought.
So, but that does bring up
They
the,
bought- No, I think
That, those two couples up front. A great time.
I do think that we do need to attract a continual base of younger people who are going to be involved, not just because they might have kids who they bring to story hour, but also because they participate in civic engagement. And I know we've had conversations about this kind of thing. And so I'm gonna bop ahead to that, but I did want to thank Renee for being here on Friday afternoon because I felt perfectly comfortable of leaving her in charge. Thanks. I really appreciate it. I'm not quite sure you know how much I appreciate it. There's gonna be some changeover on the Friends Board as we bring in new people, and a couple of people have stepped back off of it. And one of the things that I'm looking at, and I'm gonna have more time to look at because my job position is changing, is looking at how we structure membership rate and what we do to bring people in, and how we structure fundraising and what that means for the overall goal of the library. I continually think that based on the efforts that we have put out, both the library staff, the majority of the work goes, and the credit goes to the library staff through the work that they do with all the programs and relationships that they make in the community, and what we've tried to do with the Friends in order to make sure that there is a sense of community where people can come gave us a great millage turnout, and I would like to continue to do that so that we have it's never too soon, I guess, to talk about a millage. In the next millage that we have that same kind of participation. So one of my goals personally is to be less involved in 10 bazillion things so that I can focus on a couple different things. And Friends is one of them. So I'm looking at really having a board that's going to be active and not just, sort of ladies and gentlemen who lunch kind of thing, who make decisions about stuff, which probably means that we'll be doing more activities that look at fundraising as we did with the art auction. And it would be really great if we could bring back the Osprey shorts as well, but that's going to be dependent on a lot of different circumstances because that was a great fundraiser. So anything that you all can do to talk it up to people would be fantastic. With that being said, we're doing a citywide postcard mailing. It should go out fairly soon. And this is going to be QR code based so that we're not spending 20,000 and doing a mailing of heavy materials that cost a lot of money. So fingers crossed. And then lastly, and thank you for putting up with my my discussions about things. The gala is June 6th. And I'm extending an invitation to all the board members to attend. We're going to have a box dinner, some alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. And then our entertainment is a woman named Vanessa Carr, C-A-R-R, who is going to be performing probably standards. Ella Fitzgerald kind of classics, in part because my kids who watch TikTok know a lot of songs, and then a lot of folks who I volunteered with because we played some music. We're like, oh, this is great. I really love this song. I'm like, this is what we're gonna do. So that's gonna be the 6th. It's doors open at 6:30. Again, we're probably gonna have a bit longer meeting because we're gonna change up how we do the gala. One of the things that we've run into with volunteering as well as attendance is the fact that the Cipriani Classic, which raises money for the Cipriani family after their tragedy, it also takes place on the same night, and it's right across the street in the Kendallwood subdivision. And I do think that if you look at importance, that's a fairly important event in the history of Farmington and Farmington Hills, and it needs the space. And so we might be moving the gala to a different kind of look and a different kind of time. But we're going to have a survey that we give to the members that everybody gets. So I will be interested to see what we can do because people love the gala, they really do. But I do want to appeal to a broader audience with giving them the ability to not have a packed schedule so much where they have to make a decision. How about that?
I don't know if we have any extra auction items, but like on Sharon's idea of getting more people aware, what you're saying is more word of mouth. I don't know if it makes sense or if it's possible to do a mini version of the auction on the night of the gala.
We've talked about doing that, and some of it is just, staff puts in so much work for this.
Yeah.
And the Friends Board has historically not. And so it would need to have a lot more participation from the Friends Board to do this kind of thing. And currently, I don't think the will is there to do it because the folks who are most active on the Friends Board also work full-time,
Right.
full-time plus, really. So I'm looking at bringing on some people who are recently retired who have great, they might not be, in marketing or law or what have you, but they've been in charge of a lot of stuff. And so I'm looking at people who have a lot of both soft and organizational skills to kind of put this thing together that we can work on, kind of like you all have been doing. I mean, as I read more about how nonprofit boards are composed, a lot of this kind of thing could go to committee work and we shouldn't be discussing it, over the course of 3 or 4 board meetings, right? Right. So it is worth looking into, Jim, and I do appreciate everybody's comments.
Stacey, I just had one idea, for the art auction, an actual physical art sitting by the circulation desk saying, this is what you can get at the auction. A physical thing saying, wow, with a big glass of wine empty there. So you'd say, what, where is that? It's over, you know, but something physical that you'd say, well, maybe I'd like to get some stuff like that.
You are absolutely right. The patron services people are the biggest
Will come in.
library facing folks
Yeah.
that most everybody sees. You might see a children's librarian if you bring kids in. You might see a reference librarian if you're doing some other things, but you definitely see the folks who are at the front desk. So, and you definitely use that area as a focal point. So I think she maybe move that digital display. Or maybe have the friends buy another digital. Like so
Or even with the art on it, an easel.
Yeah, so it looks
You know,
like.
and with the
yeah,
sign explaining.
Yeah.
what's-
You know, we keep seeing like a 20% of people look at things digitally and 80% of people look at things not digitally, with the exception of the newsletter, which I think people get. And it's hard for people to distinguish who the library is and who the friends are because we're just one big thing. And that's fine. Can be one big thing. I mean, everybody's a librarian, library, right? So, right. So I will take that into consideration. And also friends members can be, you don't have to be on the board to be on a committee if I structure things the way I want to. So anybody who wanted to contribute to the committee for that, and who has an interest in art would so be appreciated.
I was gonna say, you know, I think, you know, one thing about the art auction that I was pleased with was the level of board participation. There were quite a few board members who were able to attend, which is great. And some board members like Sharon even brought one with her.
Nice.
And so I do think, you know, if board members have thoughts or ideas around things, from the Friends perspective, most of us are or should be Friends members. And so I think we can contribute in those committees and yeah, just like Renee hopping into the book sale and others of us have worked the book sales and things. So let's do that. And let's continue to encourage people to come to events and bring people when we can.
Yeah, and you know, if you want to encourage people to donate stuff, the things that are unique tend to go like quickly. Like Ernie, somebody donated a bunch of records. It was mostly 70s rock supergroups and one Gloria Gaynor album. It was really an interesting assortment. And they were gone in the first hour that we opened. They were gone. Yeah. So yeah.
So I was out of town though for the whole weekend of the auction on our book sale, but I happened to visit Bookstock on Monday.
Mhm.
And there was, of all the people there was a woman right over here who was talking to somebody else, not to me, but she said, yeah, my library had their book sale yesterday and I didn't know where to go, but she obviously made it to, and she said Farmington Hills, and then she obviously made it to both sales. So, but yeah, I know overlap causes some stress for people.
It also creates more of an excitement and brings the zeitgeist into it. I don't know what's gonna happen, you know, because
Yeah.
as we look ahead. I really do like to celebrate stuff that happens with the library during either National Library Week or National Friends Week, and sometimes that's not possible because National Library Week floats around in April and you can't always, you know,
Yeah.
pinpoint it.
Well, even Bookstock moves around, so yeah, we're not always gonna.
Right. Appreciate it.
Any more questions for Stacy? All right, thank you so much. All right, that will bring us to the director's report. Kelly, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, so we had a couple of big programs last weekend. We had the AAPI celebration on Saturday, May 3rd. It was a huge hit as usual, over 300 attendees who enjoyed the performances and the activities. And then on Sunday, May 4th, we had the Compañeros de Flamenco program, and that project was funded in part by the Michigan Humanities. And so over approximately 135 people were in attendance for that one. So, and then kind of like a little lesson for people. You could come up on stage and do some dancing. So they enjoyed that. Also, we had back in April, we did have our 1,000 books before kindergarten. It was a teddy bear picnic. And so that was celebrating our participants in that program, or you could sign up that day, and there were like 174 guests for that one, so. Food Truck Tuesdays, we're gonna do again this year, but we're kind of changing it up for an evening dinner, like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So the first one is June 17th. Becky and Maria, do you know who it is?
Heroes and Villains.
Heroes and Villains.
The sandwich place that always brings a crowd, right?
They have a good social media following.
Yeah.
Mhm. They have good sandwiches. They do.
And then July is the
Rooster?
The Drunken Rooster.
Drunken Rooster.
Yes, he's like a Mediterranean taco fusion type of truck.
And then August is Funkin' Fries, something.
Bunk it up fries.
Bunk It Up
Yeah,
Fries.
so it's all fries. They're all like based on song titles.
like Brick
especially.
House.
Yeah, yeah, and then it would be like a meal on top of your fries, pretty much.
So yeah, we're gonna try from 5 to 7. We'll have like lawn activities, I think, you know, that kind of thing, do some of them. We'll see how that works. Summer reading begins June 1st, so you can sign up June 1st. The Schools Out celebration is June 12th, the last day of school, and that's when the Kona ice cream truck comes to the Liberty Street location. They'll have mini putt and giveaways from the Michigan Learning Channel, so. That's always very well attended. I feel like last year they sold out, did they not, Maria?
The what?
Kona ice cream, somebody.
Oh, no, the first year they only had one truck
Oh.
and they had to bring in another truck. Now we just got 2 trucks.
Is that only at Liberty? It's only, yeah. First grade field trips have started. Today was a big day for them as they all came noisily into the library. But they're very cute. And then Sharon had asked me to talk about the cricket machine. Like, but do you know that we have a cricket machine that you could use downstairs in the conversion spaces? So it's one of our in-house services that we offer. It's made possible by a donation from the Junior Optimists of the STEAM Academy across the street. That way, I guess it would be. It's located in the Heritage Room. We do not provide the materials for the projects. You have to provide your own material with whatever you want to make. But we do provide tools and accessories to use the cricket machine, and you can check them out at the information desk. We also have a cricket machine in the Library of Things collection that it can be
Okay.
checked out if you wanted to take
Do they
it.
use it to make decals? Is that what they use it for?
You can make anything, like.
DKL, greeting cards.
So bricks over here.
Right. I've had it since like 2018. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can make. all
You
kinds
put
of
iron on things.
It cuts things.
It cuts things
Right.
out.
Yeah, in a pattern, like whatever pattern you put in, yeah. We were the recipient, once again, of the Bosch Community Fund in the amount of $35,000. We were just notified about that. And that will allow us to continue to offer Udemy and Fiero Code, the coding software. Plus we're purchasing robot kits, laptops, and more library things items and seed library items. We had, when we put in the proposal for the Bosch grant, Sherry Bond, our business outreach. We used what we thought would be the cost of Udemy, and it turns out that Udemy raised their prices. And so she called them up and said, and she negotiated to keep the same price so that it would match the funding for the Bosch Community Fund. So she was right. She was very successful in that. I think I mentioned this before, after 40 years, Ellie Campbell is retiring at the end of June. So we will have her retirement celebration on Sunday, June 4th from 12 to 2 p.m. here in the auditorium at the library. We also have to invite alums and her family.
Of course.
It's like pulling teeth with her to get her to agree to this because she does not like attention.
I'm not giving you the list.
She's like, no, it's like, well, let me think about it. Let me think about it. Let me think about it. So we finally got it finalized and she's on board. And so with that being said, our new business office manager started. His name is Brian Kantz. His first day was on Monday. So he's been working with Sally, trying to learn all the information that she has in her brain for the last 40 years in that position in 39 days. So, yeah. What else was I feel like I had some, oh, we had our first MLK Day meeting on Wednesday. With Greg from Farmington Public Schools, you know, brainstorming ideas, what worked well, what didn't work well, and we have some pretty exciting ideas started floating around there, so we'll see how they flush out. And then that's about it. Any questions for me?
Yes, I have a question about the food truck Tuesdays. I know when I was there during the lunchtime, I waited in line for like 30 minutes to get to.
That's gonna happen on a food truck.
Well, what I'm suggesting is it possible on these days to have two? Because you get a lot more people.
So there's always a quota that you have to meet. And then if you don't meet that quota, you have to pay. And I pick for a competition that everybody goes to this food truck and they don't go to this food truck, and then I'm stuck paying $1,200.
Sometimes they ask if another food truck will be present.
Okay.
There's also sometimes a truck fee for each one that comes out, depends on the truck. So it's, yeah, you're confidence more money.
Yeah.
It, yeah, I
And
understand.
we, a lot of times we just make the quota.
Yeah.
I remember one time I tried to have two food trucks for the adult recess event. And one of the food trucks took it upon themselves to contact the other food truck and ask them not to come, so.
It's doggy dog.
I think the move to the evening will be interesting because I always love when I can run up here and get to the food trucks, but that's not often. And in the evening, I think a lot more people, different
We
people
have,
might be. able
yeah,
to-
we've had requests for to try it in the evening because, yeah.
So that's why I suggested two, because
Yeah.
I think you'll have
It
a
might
lot
be
more
easier,
people.
yeah.
Yeah. This, yeah.
It also sounded like, if you don't mind my saying, they wanted to create kind of like a vibe where you're hanging out. Like
Yes.
they're gonna have the long games out. I know there was conversation about like having music potentially, or I know some of the trucks bring speakers and play some music. And so it's one thing to like be trying to grab lunch and get back to work, but it's another where you can wait till the line dies down because you're like here for a while in the evening. This is where you're spending your time. So hopefully that would make a difference.
You guys set up table and chairs.
We have picnic tables. And I think they're gonna do it. They're doing it in the back.
Yes,
So it'd be a little shadier instead of on the.
and then just encouraging people to bring their own chairs or blankets or whatever.
Any more questions for Kelly? All right. I think we have a
Okay,
fast-
so we have Becky Hall here today. She's on our children's department at the Liberty Street. Let me share your PowerPoint.
Do you have a clicker? Should I come down there? There's.
No, I'm just gonna, you tell me when that.
Oh, sure.
I hate that.
So you just, you know, yeah.
I know how to use it.
All right, okay. I prefer that. Stand and feel the fine. Okay.
No? Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know, Kelly. I have to go.
Oh, I got this. Hi, my name is Becky. I am an information services specialist. I work out of the Liberty Street location and I'm down in the children's department. I joined FCL in October of 2021. You might have noticed that I don't have librarian in my title because I'm not a librarian. So my background is in education. And a lot of people wonder how I ended up at the library with that background. But what I come with is an elementary degree, and then I have a ZA endorsement, which for those who are unfamiliar is especially for early childhood education. So elementary would give me like kindergarten through 8th grade, and then the ZA is birth through age 8. So like more focus in the younger years. And I taught in a lot of different settings. I mostly did preschool for the last decade plus. But I ran a program out of a church. So I was like the director and the teacher. I worked with the University of Michigan in Dearborn at their early childhood education center, where I got to like work with the students who were in their degree program. They came and did their practicums in my classroom, and I got to help mentor them through the different phases as they learned how to implement lessons and how to all of the different facets of like working with the children. And I also did grant funded programming. So like a GSRP program. Okay, so that to me translated and in practice really easily into the story times, right? I'm a patron, I bring my kiddos and I'm going, I can do that. I do that all day. I can manage 30 minutes of like a developmentally appropriate story time and then all of those age appropriate activities afterwards. So we've got story times, we've got field trips, we've got events. Here was Dia de los Niños, which was just the other week. I got to run the piñatas. We had 4 piñatas, so I'm like organizing the kids, calming the chaos. No one's getting hit with a stick, right? I also get to run the 1,000 books before kindergarten programs with Melanie. I planned the fall ones at the branch, and this was the year that we had the train come out. That was a big hit. And then community outreach, which sometimes means going into a preschool classroom. Yeah, you see some familiar faces. Sometimes it means going into a preschool classroom and doing the same kind of thing. That's a really familiar environment for me, but also it could be like doing a trunk or treat or something like that. This was when we did the trunk or treat at the Salvation Army a couple of years ago. We had like the bubble machine going. It's really good.
We had the best trunk, I have to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
We
well,
did.
they told us so, yeah.
The one thing I worried about transitioning from a classroom to a library setting was that I would lose those really great relationships I have with children and families, but I have found that that's not the case. I really get to continue to nurture those relationships here and in this space, which I really love. We have our regulars down in the department, and I'm using that to share not only our library events, but our resources. There are parents who are looking, I don't know how to find preschoolers. I don't know what's going on with my child, but they don't seem to be on track developmentally. How can I make friends? It's my age group, like all of that. So I still get to do that. One of the things I got to do was put on a parent workshop over Zoom this last winter. We did something on sensory processing. We coordinated with the Monmouth Family Institute who had come to see us. I also work the information desk, like that's one of my roles and responsibilities, but that's when I get to really interact with the patrons and the kiddos. You might find me out there chatting if you come by and see what we're doing. I also get to have different library collections that I work to add to and take out the old stuff. So I'm in charge of parenting, which I think is a great fit. Thank you, Maria, for assigning me that one. I've also got some of the nonfiction. I order DVDs and I get to order those box books, the ones that read to you. That collection just runs itself. Just keep the books coming. And then I'm serving on the IDEA committee. So that's my committee thing. And then the other thing that I do, this one's not as much assigned, but I'm the person who does a lot of our displays. I help with the corner barbershop window display, and I'm the person who decorates the book bike. So this was the year I turned the book bike into the Polar Express for Light Up the Grands. And then the year was the luau theme. Some of the other things that I've done. We did a Barbie skate, not this past winter before, right? And it was a big deal to have like a box, like a Barbie box for a little photo op. So I made one so that we could have one of those out at the skate. When we needed more curtains for our puppet theater, new ones, I was able to create those. And then this middle one, this is a set of felt cupcakes that the kids play with, like on that red wall. We had beads on them, and kids will be kids, so they ripped them all off. It became a choking hazard. So we were trying to brainstorm, what can you do to decorate them and make them exciting and different, the sensory sensations that they can't destroy. So I volunteered to embroider them.
Wow, I'm impressed. They're beautiful.
So you might have guessed, I really enjoy crafting. Yes. This is a little bookshelf insert that I have put together. That's not my books. I like things with a pattern mostly. So this was like a kit. I like knit and crochet and cross stitch, things like that. But I find at the library, I'm often making it up as I go. I like to read. That helps. That's what brought me to the library in the first place before I showed up with my kids. When I go on vacation, I like to find a nice independent bookstore. And that's my souvenir that I bring home. And then I love spending time with my family. These are my kiddos. The little one is Liana. She's a year and a half. She's got this expanding vocabulary, sharing all of the things she has to say. She's in a hurry to keep up with her brother. That's Lozano. He's 7 and he just started kickball. That's the big thing in our house. So we made him sign up for kickball. The other things coming up at the library is the summer reading, right? That's the big thing. It's for everybody, but of course it's huge in children's. We've got that celebration for schools out coming up that Kelly was talking about, and then we'll keep doing all that stuff in the summer, the story times and the school age programs and evening events. For me personally, I help with the food trucks. That's why I was chiming in. We're gonna have a food truck at our final party this year, so add that to the list of food trucks that I've got in my back pocket. And I asked if I could do a jigsaw puzzle tournament. That's all ages. Come with the team. I've got 500-piece puzzles, and we'll see who can compete to put them together the fastest. Right? We'll have snacks. We'll have prizes. It'll be a good time.
When are you thinking about having the jigsaw puzzle?
It's at the end of June in the evening.
Wait, hold on, let me look at the calendar. It's
Registration
June
is-
23rd, it's the 23rd, right?
Yeah,
It's on a Monday night.
it is a Monday evening. Yep. Teams of 2 to 6, all ages.
Not for me.
Oh, for me,
My
it's not.
mom is a jigsaw puzzle.
Right.
And she's highly competitive. It sounds like her kind of, event.
I brought it up because I wanted to participate. I'm gonna run it, but that's okay. That fun will still be there, right? Right. Thank you for inviting me and giving me some. Thank you.
So much. Thank you. That was enjoyable, even the slide with Brown, and myself in the rubber duckies. So thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Becky?
Any questions for Becky? Find someone that I was
Right.
covering all through.
You could invite your mom that weekend and you could come in, you
She's
know.
coming tomorrow, but
Oh,
she might have to come back for this. Yeah, yeah, she'll have to come back for this. Okay, thank you, Becky. That will bring us to our subcommittee updates. So first and foremost, personnel. So Dilhara, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Erin. In your packet, you have a tentative timeline for the next for the director search. And so I'm going to kind of talk through it. The personnel committee developed this, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our reasoning and decisions that we have made, and then I'll after that. So we have already started drafting the job posting and job description to for the library position using past search documents from Farmington, but also area libraries have shared their postings with us, so it's really helpful to see that. And we are planning to do a survey with the staff, with the deadline of end of the month, just to get their input on what should be, things, qualities and things we should be looking for in a director position. And hopefully we'll use some of that information to finalize the job description in the mid-June timeframe. And then we'll post it and it'll be up for quite some time. Again, it's a tentative timeline, so these dates are approximate, so it may shift slightly, but this is the plan as we have thought about it so far. And so come August, we are hoping that the posting can close and we'll have so many applicants at the end of that. And so the personnel committee will review those applications, select interviews for the first round interviews that we would conduct the week of September 8th. And then like mid-September, so we are already looking at for the second round interviews, that would be a public meeting with the whole board and anyone else who wants to attend. So either September 18th or October 2nd. Would be the second round interviews, so no more than 3 second round interviewees will be there. And So October 9th, please put this in your calendar, that we will be having a closed meeting for the board to just discuss kind of the final salary and all those kind of details, and then vote on making an offer to the finalist. And hopefully we will make that offer a day or two, or following day. And that should give them plenty of time to transition from their current role to hopefully starting sometime in December. And that way Kelly can then impart all of her wisdom by the time that she might be leaving in January. So a couple of the things that we've discussed is gathering input from the staff. That was a decision we made to keep that to survey. I think we've thrown out the idea of listening sessions, but that felt duplicative of if we're doing a survey as well. But this is kind of all for all of us to decide what you all think. So I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on all of this. Kathy, Renee, is there anything that you want to?
Yeah, I've downloaded. I've written what I thought would be the library director position description and sent it out to the personnel committee. I mean, I'm sure that they would like to make suggestions, and when we go through the staff survey, there may be changes to that too. But I also was going to work on the job posting, and I've downloaded a whole bunch of them just so I could see how their postings look. And in all of the postings, they do give a amount that could be paid, the money amount. You always have to have the money amount there. Every one of them said that. And then other things too that I don't think we had in our current job posting that was used before, but so that's kind of an important. But otherwise, that's.
Yeah, you'll notice that there's no search firm listed here. That was also a decision that we discussed, and I think if part of what we will work on is a really robust recruiting plan. We already talked about several places that jobs of this type are typically posted, and there may be others, so if you know of that, let us know. But I think we're gonna see how it goes with just us doing it. Can always get help if we need it, but I think based on, yeah, prior experience, it feels better to just start with us. Renee, is there anything that you wanted to add about the timeline or anything that we talked about?
No, just I was gonna mention that as well, that we're not gonna go with a headhunter type of a firm at this point.
Any questions, thoughts, comments?
I do have an initial thought. First of all, thank you all for your efforts on this. Personnel committee always has lots to do, but this is like an extra exercise since somebody decided they wanted to retire. As if that's allowed. But I will say, when we spoke about this, my initial thought was I love the idea that there is the staff survey here, but personally, I might like the opportunity for a few listening sessions with staff so that staff would have the opportunity to communicate with representatives from the board live and in person. Some people, I'm kind of going through this in my own work life right now. We're in a taxing situation. People are stressed out, right? Survey response is down. My group always has 100% response. This year I got 71%, right? And so some people told me that they're just kind of petered out with surveys, but if I want to talk to them, they love to talk to me, right? And I think when you think about the multimodal way that people communicate now, if you might get different people and different input if you do have listening sessions. So I'd volunteer myself to participate in those, certainly if you all are amenable to having them. But I do think it would be good to have that additional opportunity for staff to provide input. And I'd love to know what other board members think about that.
I would certainly be willing to participate in it as well.
I think I'd love to ask Kelly Maria and other staff here, is that the concern that, a survey wouldn't be responded, like if people had the thing to say, would they prefer to do it?
What is our survey rate?
It's terrible. It's like 46%.
Yeah, so it would be better to have another option.
Unless, of course, you're asking about how.
Yeah, our survey got like 70%.
Is it possible to give the survey and on the line that says, if you'd like to also add additional input, you know, get your barcode or whatever. And in other words, give someone an opportunity to say, well, I would like to do that instead. And maybe you get, you know, the people who really want to talk might be able to pick it up that way. Like invite them to talk.
We can certainly do that.
Guys got the survey that I sent.
Would that be on library time?
We did include that.
Oh, yeah, it was last
Yeah,
time.
we're kind of.
It was during the.
So maybe.
Well, I think you can do, it's, you gotta hit morning, afternoon and night-ish, or the listening session.
Yes.
Could be like Lucy, talk to me. The surveys.
Well, and that is kind of the idea, right? More of a free form, you know, there'll be some driving, you know, principles there. But people might be a little bit more transparent. You might pick up some things that you just don't get with the survey process, especially if the response rates are low, right?
Right.
We know that.
Would we want listening sessions, meaning there's a group and you share, you know, in front of each other, or is it better to have one-on-one conversation? That's like, as part of the survey, we could,
Or Zoom meeting.
right, that's what I was gonna say, like, we can have 20, 15, 20-minute slots that people can just meet with.
I think I personally, if it's possible, like I would be looking to try to do this in person, if possible.
Right.
Second, you know, as far as the format, I think there are pros and cons to both, right? If you have one-on-one sessions, you isolate the possibility of kind of getting groupthink going on, and you really do get each individual's pure thoughts, I think, more cleanly than when you have groups. So, but you try to have groups so that you can make it manageable so that you can actually accomplish it. So I'd say if we do groups, keep them small, maybe 3 or 4 people, no more than that would be my thought.
Do you know how many people spoke? Because not everybody will want to, right?
Exactly.
But do you remember how many people actually spoke at the last, when John Keister met with staff?
What the demand was.
I think,
I know that.
I remember he was downstairs and I feel like several of my staff did. But you know, my staff is pretty, you know.
I don't know.
Purple.
How do you do that? We don't mind sharing our opinions and suggestions and stuff.
Well, because it's like, I believe it was assigned, like you had a certain time slot.
It would be scheduled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already discussed this with the personnel committee, because I didn't want to try to explain everything that you've already explained. If you-
No,
Okay.
we didn't discuss one-on-one sessions. 'Cause-
Okay.
Yeah, no, but I believe it was assigned. Like there was. a
Yeah, like I
time slot
signed
that
up
you
for a time.
Yeah.
And then somehow they're like, do you mind if somebody else comes in? I was like, yes, I
Yeah, sometimes they wanted to go in 1, 2 people.
So they were one-on-one.
Yes, they were one-on-one.
Okay, you guys speak up if I say something wrong, staff. So we had in 2019, we had 2 candidates. And I wanted to do it. I saw something happen at the school district with the superintendent that I thought was good, but it turned out not to be so good. And that was to invite both candidates here for the day before their interviews at night. And so both candidates met with staff for all day, and that would get at the morning and afternoon staff. You guys remember that?
yeah, there was the 3 candidates.
3 candidates. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. In my mind, there was 2 that were, yeah. That were
Oh,
finalists.
yeah.
Yes. There were 3 staff. Yeah.
And
3
there was
candidates.
a meet and greet, and then they set them up in our building, they set them up in the meeting room, and there's like, 3 little things.
Right.
And you could just go and talk to each one of them, and we went as a group, and I really liked that.
Well, you like that format? Is that what you're saying? Or you liked?
Yeah, I liked the meet and greet, because we got to meet them beforehand, we were all given a little like bio.
Right. So and here's where you can correct me if I'm wrong, but why I say that didn't the way I wanted it to, is because from that, there was one last opportunity at the meeting. This was the night where the board interviewed all three candidates. And so there was public speaking and staff spoke up and gave indications of which candidate they liked from their time with.
The interview.
Well, it could.
Oh.
It could. That's what I'm saying. I could be wrong, but there was a time for there was a time for staff to, or how did you guys give
No, there
feedback?
was a
to the-
Survey
Okay.
afterwards. Cause the interview, you guys just interviewed,
Yeah,
but there was no, like, nobody
that's right.
in the.
And we took staff feedback through
It was through a survey.
okay. So I'm only saying this to you, Dahar, that, this is where, and I shouldn't say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know that staff gave a lot of feedback that the board did not hear what yeah.
After the
And,
fact.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's always a tension between, okay, yes, we can listen, but we might not do what you want us to do. But you know, like with the board, this board is going to face the same situation potentially. So,
I
That's
think
why,
that's good, yeah. Go ahead.
that's why we wanted to do the survey like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that we would get all of their ideas and maybe formulate some of the questions or that kind of thing.
right, the
And
only thing
we
about that
wanted
is they
to
don't know who
use-
the candidates are, right? They,
Well,
like,
we wanted to use the survey to find from the staff, what kind of qualities they were looking for to help guide us in
Okay.
our selection.
And that's what, when we met with Keister, he gave.
yeah, and so for
And-
those of you that don't know, John Keister was our professional library director search consultant. Yeah.
So sorry, I forgot to say this as I went through the timeline. One of the things we talked about is making a clear distinction about the role of the personnel committee as the hiring committee, the role of the board as part of, right, meeting the director. That's why there's a public interview in the second round interviews. And it's not necessarily the staff's role to provide input on the hiring of the director. And I think that of course can lead to, if you give your input and it's not taken, that leads to I think a really poor way for the next director to start. And we want to be transparent in the process, involve staff, hear from staff, which is why we have the survey, which is why we have a second round interview, if you all want to hear and, you know, see the candidates beforehand. But then also be really clear that it's the decision of the board to talk about this, candidates and make that decision and make the final approval. No, it's never going to be the most perfect process. People are gonna feel all sorts of ways because this can look all sorts of ways. But this is kind of what we discussed. And another thing that we want to do is get all the documents that we're putting together. You'll see there's drafting and finalizing a hiring rubric and the job posting. Like, we want to create this documentation so the next time we have to go through this, all of this is saved and we don't have to do as much of this kind of digging and developing.
One last question, or maybe you guys looked at what we did. There are only certain reasons why you can go into a closed session. And I'm not sure this is one of them.
No, I gotta contact Mike. That's
Yeah.
right.
That's on my list.
Even if we're talking about salary implications, you definitely cannot discuss your selection of candidate. That has to be done in a public meeting. And there would have to be, you know, public invited, and they would want to be there. But, so yeah, we just have to be careful.
Any other thoughts and comments?
So are you saying that we have to make the decision in the public board meeting?
That's right.
Well, that's what I thought.
I'm not sure. So, for example,
We did go into closed session though.
But all that
Talk
discussion about
contract.
salary and
Yeah,
stuff was
let's talk about
involved.
the contract.
yeah, and ultimately, even if we decide to go into close, which always has its own problems, you have to come out and make a vote in public. So there's
We
a,
can't make
yeah, so I'm
decisions.
not trying to make a big deal about something that's gonna happen in October, but there might, I just want to warn people that, you know, think about it. We have to do just, in my mind, we have to do as much as we can in public. And in fact, the Open Meetings Act only gives certain conditions under which you can go into closed session. And picking a new director is not one of those conditions.
So once Kelly finds out kind of exactly, part of the closed meeting wasn't necessarily to discuss the candidate, but more about when we offer
Right.
right from the salary range that feels private information,
It's public.
right.
Yeah, it's public, right. It's
It is
public.
ultimately
Yeah, yeah.
public, but to have that conversation in a closed meeting. So if our attorney clarified for that, well, yeah.
I mean, there might be other considerations, like was moving expenses, there could be, you know,
And that, yeah, we got advice from that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's their question. And you'll keep hearing updates as we progress through this time. Yes. Oh, sorry, Jim.
No, I was just, so to be clear, and I thank, just like Ernie said, thank you. And so you guys, the personnel committee has taken it upon themselves. And the board really just shows up at certain points where you tell us to show up. So yeah, that's a lot of work, but thank you very much for volunteers taking this on. Yeah, because this was a lot of work.
Well, and I want to maybe supplement your comment there, Jim, and say, in addition to that, we want board members to be vetting the candidates as they're coming across, even though the committee's doing this, right? All of us will be looking into the candidates, assessing them, where they're coming from, and getting a good handle on their background, so that we can make really informed decisions when we get to that point. Appreciate your comments about, the openness. When we talked about it, you can't go into closed session for a prescribed list of reasons, which somehow, you can kind of work your way into those prescriptions as needed. But I do think it's important for the staff and for the public at large, for us to be as transparent as possible. So I'm aligned with that. And I think we could set your salary in public. So. But what I'm hearing though is that we're generally aligned with this approach. I'm not hearing any major concerns with that. Do you want to understand though how you guys feel about the listening sessions?
So this would be, I think,
Yeah, explain it.
I think the reason we initially didn't want to do that is because, one-on-one and, what I'm hearing might not be what the next person would be hearing. So we would, I guess it would need to be more.
maybe we could take this back, the suggestion back to the personnel department committee and see if we can figure out a way that would.
When you guys say one-on-one, did you mean one?
One-on-one listening session with staff.
Right, but one
Before.
staff, what's the one and the one?
Board members.
One board member with
One
one
split.
See, I was thinking more like few
Okay.
board members.
Okay.
And not even
okay.
just the committee, but this could be the board at large
Okay.
participating in these sessions, right?
Right.
But yeah, but more than one board member, maybe like 2 or 3 board members.
Yeah, I mean, you can have, so for different reasons, we had to listen, we have had staff listening sessions in my history, for different reasons where we did keep it under a quorum of board members. For example, we had a Friday morning session between 9 and 10 for all the staff that was working Friday before the library opened. So there are ways of doing it. And I suggest that even if we had a quorum, we just make it a public meeting, where the board doesn't have to make any decisions, but yeah.
As long as there's no
Yeah.
decisions.
But I agree with you that not having the whole board hear comments at once maybe is not, I don't know if that's really the best that might lead, but just like you guys trust I'm looking at Sharon, just like you trust the facilities committee, we obviously trust the personnel committee. But I just worry about the amount of work that you guys are putting on yourselves on this timeline. And I appreciate deeply what you're trying to do. I just want to make sure that you get enough support.
And that was the other part I wanted to mention, and that was the main thing I asked O'Hara when we discussed this.
Yeah,
You know, I know when I joined the board, I was in your seat and I took on a lot of administrivia from a personnel perspective personally, right? Which was exhausting, but it needed to be done, right? But I want to make sure you don't overload yourself. I'm going to make sure we have like a meeting with Danette also to kind of talk through her lens on this. And she is somebody who I think can also provide some professional support if we get to a place where administratively we might need somebody to manage the process. So I'm still holding that out there because I think you may make a different decision, right, as you guys reconsider. But I think with this, you know, I'm comfortable with moving forward, and I would entertain a motion from the floor tonight to authorize delegation of this process to the personnel committee with the general guidance that's been outlined, knowing that some things may change as necessary, but they'll stay in consultation with us on those changes.
Can I make that motion?
Yes, you can.
Motion to delegate the hiring process to the personnel committee.
second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we would delegate the director search responsibility to the personnel committee. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, O'Hara. Anything else from the personnel committee? Thank you. Do you have facilities committee update? Aaron? All right, I'll turn it over to you.
We'll start with the maintenance type of stuff from Peter. And the first, if you remember, we had some discussion about the light bulbs over the main library section. And he is going to, we talked about, you know, where is that just stalled, what's going on with it? He said he really wanted to do it and he's gonna get a RFP for a quote on that. And the question was, we talked about $20,000 as kind of a cap, or 15. And do we need any kind of motion tonight to authorize him when that comes in? Only when it comes in, because it's under 15. Okay. All right, so that's his plan. He said the roof is moving right along, and the elevator is in the repair mode, the one that was not working well.
He finished, he got all the responses back from the RFP for the elevator,
Oh, so,
but that's not gonna start till August.
right, because it's a lower price too.
No, it'll cost, he's gonna have to come, once he decides who he wants, he's gonna have to bring it to the board to get approval. Because
Yeah.
it will be,
For
it'll be
those-
more than $15,000.
It will be. All right, so. Everybody should just walk, right? And so then we discussed the phasing 1, 2, and 3, and the committee, actually, that's the committee right here. The committee chose for phase 3 to get some high contact projects done. They were highly visible and were really vibrant for the community. So they are the children's outdoor area at Farmington Hills, children's program room, children's staff area, and children's new play area, all at Farmington Hills. Phase 2 did a lot of work at Farmington. So phase 3 is supposed to be the eye candy that says, maybe here's where we need the bond. That's 4.13 million. So this is where you have to think about where could we get a bond or more money for this 4.13 million. So the first project that is coming up on the contract is 3.1. And is there a number on phase 2? Phase 2 has a number. Oh, phase 2 is 3.4 million. So you
Which
could
would cover it.
squeak by a little bit without a bond on that one.
Yeah, we got the money to cover
Oh, we had the money.
that. We have the money.
But on phase 3, there is no way that we could fund that from the resources that we have. But those would be big ticket items and would be something that the community would really be enthusiastic about. So that's and we also talked about there's a meeting coming up. Ford's sponsoring a meeting to chat about the EV chargers. And Jim, are you going to that? Isn't that coming up? Who was at that meeting? Yeah,
So it's
You're
me,
included in that email.
Kelly.
but that's next week.
Kathy.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's next Tuesday.
That's fine. So it was only a meeting to see what the board representative had to say. So it's an open idea for discussion. And I think we would have, I don't think we had any other topics, just some kind of chit chat. So that's all for
Facilities. All right. Thank you very much, Sharon, and appreciate the work your committee is doing because you probably are the busiest committee right now.
Are we putting this on new business or?
Yeah, this is your new business.
Oh, okay, all right.
Unfinished business.
Unfinished,
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So thank you, Sharon. Now we will turn to Kathy for finance. Anything else from the finance committee? No? Okay. I think the one thing I will say though, with regard to commentary around whether we have enough money or we don't have enough money, we might want to talk with Plant Moran about establishing like our minimum fund balance, right? And that, okay, and so, but I mean,
Is that for
I don't know,
tonight's discussion?
organizationally hasn't been set that we won't spend beyond that.
Well,
right?
oh, right, you have.
And so I think that as a board, we probably need to visit that just to illuminate that to everyone's awareness and make that official. So we'll put that on a future agenda.
Go back to the 5 before.
Mhm.
Is that what, like,
Yeah.
13?
But I think we actually need to set one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we're not moving ahead on phase 3 yet.
Yeah, I was really excited over there, Jim, probably like, okay, like, let me get these folks under control. All right, so that will bring us to unfinished business. And so I think tonight, per Sharon's conversation there from the facilities committee, we are looking for an approval of the phase 1 design work contract. So Sharon, anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, I believe everybody got the most updated one on their email. And if you notice, they listed all the same projects that we have for the phase 1. We talked about them, that's the 3.1 million. And there are a few changes. The attorney looked it over, made some changes. Only monetary change that was made is that they're going to charge us 15% for servicing copies and stuff like that. And he made some significant changes and some of the legalese, some limitations, but the one question that still was a little outstanding, as Kathy was concerned about it, was about ability to use materials and not having run into copyright problems with it. The attorney made some adjustments and we talked a little bit about it, but I think it'll be an unresolved issue in Kathy's mind. And so, does anybody have any questions they'd like to add or comments at this time on it? I mean, we're pretty hard on it. I think it looks a lot more structured than when Steve first showed us. So, and hopefully we can move forward on our timeline, which we'll have to adjust a little bit once we do this. Anybody have some concerns or questions? It's a little part of a big project once you see all the rest of the numbers. So. Well, Ernie, are you gonna make a motion?
Well, I will. I'll move that we approve the design work for phase 1. Spelled out in
And I'll second.
merits.
All right, it's been moved by Jim and seconded by Sharon that we would approve the phase 1 work that's outlined here in this architectural services agreement. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Sharon, thank you and the committee, but you especially for the rigor with which you kind of do all of these things through and the rigor that you put Steve through to a degree, just to let him know like we're on top of it. So I really appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you. I do have a question for the everyone here. Is Kelly was nice enough to put the projects all kind of rewritten in, how we added some and subtract some. Would everyone like a copy of this? It's really helpful.
I would get it to you. I just did it right before the meeting, so I didn't have
Yeah,
time to.
and then it kind of makes a lot of sense because you can see what we voted on not to do. So thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. Yep.
Are these all with them? All of them, yeah.
Any other questions, or discussion around the contract? I guess with that.
Oh, I just along with that contract, exhibit A is the insurance certificate. So it's supposed to be included before you, but here it is.
I did read that in the.
Yeah.
documents, yeah. All right, so then that will bring us to new business, and on the new business agenda, we have approval of retiree health benefit plan. Kelly, I will turn it over. to you.
Okay, so this is in response to the Medicare reimbursements for retirees that are eligible for that benefit. This is now closed to active employees or anybody that retired after 2016. So there's only 10 people that this basically affects. So we reimburse those 10 retirees their Medicare insurance, Part B insurance, which is $115.40. They get that per month and we pay it to them quarterly. So when previous to Plant Moran coming on, there was no issue because there wasn't anybody knowledgeable about this. When Plant Moran came on, they're like, oh no. This is, you don't have a summary plan, benefit plan written that meets the IRS code, and so
It's giving people money.
you have to pay taxes on that, right? And so we had to then send W-2s to the retirees to pay, so that they would. Exactly.
They have to pay back taxes.
No, just going forward. And so this has been going on for a while now, and then this was also told to the previous director that they needed to do. She's the one that brought Plant Moran in, and then she didn't do anything about it. So this year, when it came tax time with Paylocity, somehow the employers now paying the tax and the employees now paying the tax. And so now it was double. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. So anyway, sent it to the attorney. The attorney had a little bit of a different viewpoint than Plant Moran, but Plant Moran was, if you don't have this plan written, then you can't do it. They have to pay taxes on it. So the attorney drafted this plan, but also included the retiree health insurance, supplemental health insurance that we pay through to manage to make sure that doesn't ever get into that loop. So it's the Medicare reimbursement, the supplemental health care, and the hearing benefit that retirees have, so that whenever you're reimbursing them for something, it doesn't get in that loop where they have to generate a W-2.
It's really putting all of those funds that retirees receive into a defined benefit plan.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So this needs to be approved by the board.
Right. Thank you for the explanation, Kelly, and I think, this is housekeeping, quite frankly, right? That as an organization, we need to do to keep ourselves in good stead and the retirees as well. So I'm certainly in support. So I would entertain a motion to approve the retiree health benefit plan as presented. Okay. Been moved and properly seconded that we will approve the retiree health benefit plan. Any discussion?
I just have a comment. It sounded like a very bad idea to do that years ago. Because it's complicated and I mean, it's one of these things that probably the board thought it was a great idea. And it adds a lot of complication.
Right.
And it wasn't a good idea. It's just a comment.
Right. Yep. I'm sure it was 1980.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that will bring us to correspondence. None.
Basically, we just did that.
Don't say anyone.
It is based
So-
on contract.
So, yeah, Kathy, you gave me a different copy of the
I'm
agenda.
sorry.
Oh, that's okay, but that wasn't on, so approval phase 3 is not on the agenda.
No, I said
Okay.
privilege, yeah. Right.
So no correspondence. Any further public comment? No public comment. That will bring us to trustee comment. Any trustee comment?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise. Ernie, I and Stephen went to the state advocacy day. And I have to say that Ernie and I shared the same representative and senator. And we were kind of like already preaching to the choir about, you know, the Michigan Electronic Library, because they already are, you know, working on our behalf. We felt that we probably should have gone to some other representatives that needed to hear our side of it. But the state is trying to make up for the difference. They're supposed to get 50% from the federal funds to make up the difference by, in the Michigan budget, instead of $1.6 million, they want to ask for, I think, 6.7, trying to make up the difference from the Michigan reserve money, the state of Michigan. So that's what's going on the budget, whether it has to get through, whether it will make it, but that's the idea. But they have now said that they're going to get 50% of the federal money that they used to get. So it was a very interesting event, and I felt we could have been more successful if we had somebody we were trying to convince. But we already had people on our team. We have Samantha Steckler and Rosemary Byer.
Oh,
So they're big supporters of us.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to comment that the city of Farmington is giving Kathy an award, the Romney Award, which is for somebody this year that is a volunteer and contributed to their whole community through all their efforts. And so she does so many things, beautification and so forth. She was just a top runner. It was no problem. So it's a nice award. Mrs. Romney came originally and on behalf of her husband and herself gave the one to the first award winner. Unfortunately, I don't know who was. So they give it to one person every year.
Sharon, thank you for mentioning Advocacy Day. We definitely had a great time. Thanks to Renee for being the chauffeur for the day.
Yeah, boy.
And she put up with all of the things that everybody had to talk about, and she got us there safe. Anyway.
There's no lack of conversation.
Right.
You know, I everything Sharon said is accurate. You know, one of the things I walked away with was the thought that, you know, as we're considering this issue, one way that we can continue to try to, you know, advance the agenda is to reach out to other electeds, right, across the state, especially those who might not necessarily be our friends or leaning in our camp, to let them know that it really is a statewide issue. We all rely on each other. Districts or municipalities, libraries that have fewer resources definitely are looking at those extended catalogs, right, for resources. But even in our library, if I look at the state report, I mean, I think we borrow more stuff than we loan to other people, even here in our library, right? So that was interesting to me. And so it really is a resource that everyone uses and benefits from. So I enjoyed having that opportunity to spend some time with the board members and also some time to advocate on behalf of libraries. So I think we can continue to kind of, you know, write some emails and nudge them along. I think Senator Bayer said she had identified $1 million that she was going to shift that way during our meeting with her. And so you just have to kind of keep chipping away at it. So.
And they had 5 or 6 different bookmobiles, little ones, bigger ones, you know. But the one that was the most portable was one that was pulled by a big truck, because it was a big enough bookmobile that was actually a library. And you would bring your Ford pickup truck or whatever, and you take it to like the local park or, and then people knew it would come when it would come, and it actually had enough books to service the people. The smaller ones, they're either you have to take the books out with the cart, or you can get in they always have to have a wheelchair handicap at the back for their wheelchair. And they just, but they had every size and shape. And of course, anyone who had their bookmobile loved their bookmobile.
Birdie's still out on.
That's
board.
still on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's often on the list.
We didn't run back there with brochures, did we?
All right. Any other trustee comment?
Yeah, I'll just add, speaking of, kind of our state level, we did a little bit more local level. I went to, there were several of us that went to the Farmington City Council meeting on April 21st, just to say thanks for the proclamation for National Library Week. And I hope to continue to do that every couple of months, just kind of go and give that public comment and give them an update on what we're doing as a library board, just so they can stay up to date. So thanks to those of you who joined.
Thanks, Donna, for speaking.
Just, a lot of you know Sarah Bowman here. She also is getting an award on Monday night for honoring her as a public servant. She was gonna get it,
Second, those comments to her about the Farmington board meeting. Thank you for speaking there. I was glad to be able to be there to see you speak. And we did the same with Farmington Hill as well, with their proclamation for Library Week. So thanks to the trustees who made it to the board meeting there. You know, us being present in, even though the library is not, and some people say this is not a political space, everything is
Gotta play
a
the
bit
game.
political. And we have our own agenda to advance as well. So us being present in those spaces and bringing voice to what's important to the library is paramount. So thanks to everybody for really kind of digging in on that stuff. All right. If no further trustee comment, I think we will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you.